park. We have to go way back. Let's say this is 1901 instead of 2021. I don't know any of you personally, but just based on statistics, I have a good idea that most of you are living in the city. Most of you are living very close to where you work. And where you live and work is very close to where you do everything else in your life. Where you shop, where you go to church, where you go to school. Because everything had to be within walking distance. You had to be able to walk to where you needed to go. Unless you were fortunate enough to own a horse, but that's another whole story. Now along comes the trolleys. Trolleys ran on tracks that ran right down the city streets. Meant people could live at some greater distances, maybe have a little bit better choice of where they worked. But still, this was all happening in the city. The trolley companies back then were privately owned businesses. They weren't like the transit authorities we have today. They had to make money. They had to run 7 days a week. But they had a problem. From the back half of Saturday through the end of Sunday, the ridership was low. Most people worked 5.5 days a week. They did a lot of activity on Saturday mornings. Nothing was open on Sundays with all of the blue laws, so to speak. The trolleys had to keep running. So the trolley companies hit on a great idea for making money. They would buy up a cheap piece of real estate out on the countryside somewhere and build a trolley line out to it. And they would build a park. At first, something very simple like we've done here. Might just be a place to come for a picnic. Maybe the park was beside a stream or a pond where they could put some canoes for rent. They might have a bandstand for band concerts. But the whole idea was you, living in the hot, congested city, could go out of the city into the countryside and recreate. And of course, since the trolley companies, a lot of them were also the first power companies, you can bet that that trolley park was brightly lighted at night, which would convince people that it was worth hooking up their houses to electricity. All kinds of things going on here. But at the very least, the trolley company got your money twice. Once to ride the trolley car and once to get into the park. As time went along, somebody figured out that the same motors and controllers that run the trolley could turn a carousel, or could spin a Ferris wheel, or could make a roller coaster roll and coast. So a lot of these trolley parks evolved into amusement parks. There aren't many of them left in the United States, about a dozen. The nearest one to us is Canopy Lake Park in Salem, New Hampshire. It's an amusement park today, but it was originally built by the local trolley company. This was the case all over the place. And one other thing happened. It didn't take long for the people in the congested city going out to the park to realize that there was all this available land out along the trolley line. And what happened? People started to build houses. That's how a lot of the suburbs grew up, because now people had a reliable way to get back and forth into the city and to go out to the park and recreate. With the local trolley line that we'll talk about later, it actually opened this seacoast area to the whole idea of day tripping with the availability of trolley service. A little bit about the car. This is car 4387 from the Eastern Massachusetts Street Railway. That's a mouthful. Everybody knew it as the Eastern Mass. The Eastern Mass was one of the largest trolley companies in the world in terms of the amount of territory they covered. And basically, they serviced all of the cities and towns, or most of them, north, northeast, south, and southeast of Boston, the greater Boston area. I grew up on the North Shore. This would have been, in my dad and granddad's day, this would have been the trolley line. This car was built in 1918. And in terms of how it runs, what makes it go, it would have been the equivalent, roughly, of the Ford Motor Company introducing the 55 Thunderbird while they were still making Model Ts. And this was a big leap in terms of the technology. But the people saw an even simpler benefit. Back in that day, many of the trolley lines had open bench, open cars for the summertime. We have some in our collection. If it was a nice day today, we'd have one out. That created their own breezes that went along. Great in the summertime, but you can't use those in the winter. So the trolley company would have to have another fleet of closed cars for the wintertime. That's expensive to have two complete fleets. This car made it comfortable in all 4 seasons. And here's what they did. I've got to pick a place to demonstrate it. Hot day.